All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, but thanks everybody for tuning in. Glad to have everybody tonight. Just in case you didn't know who my name is Deontay Copeland. I'm the CEO, Exec Director of the National High School Basketball Association.
Well, for Diane.
And these ladies right here to
Order
introduce
for Diane.
themselves.
Diane.
Alyssa, mute your mic.
I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Right, go ahead, ladies.
I'm Sydney. I'm an intern with the NHSBA, and I'm glad to have you all here tonight.
And I am Kennedy. I'm also another intern with NHSBA. Thank you for everyone tuning in.
Awesome. And we have 3 speakers tonight. We have Mr. Adam White. He's the CEO of Front Office Sports. We have Mr. Frank Lawrence. He's CEO of Little Rock Athletic Centers. And we have Mr. Mike Brown. He is the CEO of Hoop Culture. So thank you guys for coming, joining us tonight.
No problem.
So if you guys have social media, everyone, make sure you join our social media pages: Facebook, the National High School Basketball Association, Twitter, the NHSBA, YouTube, NHSBA 06. And those are the social medias we have. Also, our website, thenhsba.com. If anybody has any questions or kids or anything, please submit those questions in the chat room to Sydney so you can ask those questions through the discussion. And make sure you participate and be active as well. So I guess my first question to get everything started is, I guess, how did you guys go about starting your business? So I guess we'll start in order. I guess, Adam, can you answer the question first?
Yeah, no problem. Happy to, and appreciate everyone for joining in. So yeah, started my business in college, so around 2014. I was going to the University of Miami at the time, and really kind of just sat down and said, do I have an opportunity to do something in and around the sports space? And it really wasn't supposed to be a business originally. I started out by just doing informational interviews with people who worked in and around the sports space. Did that for about 3.5 years, graduated in 2017. Ended up kind of having it transition a little bit from there. I didn't have a job straight out of school in 2017. I thought I was going to get a job, but didn't get a job. And so I ended up just working at a restaurant, working as a TA, and then trying to do the business on the side. And then from there, just ended up meeting with someone actually through Twitter of all places. That person ended up becoming our first investor. I now live in New York, moving from Miami in the latter half of 2018, and where we have 30 full-time employees. So been kind of crazy. So yeah, we got the investment in the latter half of 18, went from 0 really full-time employees in 19 to about 10 to about 18 in 20, and now right around 30 going into the rest of 21.
Frank, what about you?
Yeah, so Deontay, I probably took more of what I would call a traditional route, in that I was out of college. I got into banking and was in the corporate world, worked for some larger banks and learned a lot on the corporate side. But during that time, actually opened up a CrossFit box. So if any of you guys are familiar with the sport of CrossFit, opened up a CrossFit box, and that's kind of how I got in the fitness business. Had an opportunity then with one of my members at the CrossFit box to purchase these athletic clubs. And so the clubs that we own now are large, mature, multi-purpose facilities. And so we had a really neat opportunity to purchase these clubs. And so for the last 8 years, I've been the managing partner and transitioned out of my corporate banking world into owning and operating some health clubs.
Awesome. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, so I went to college to play basketball, and I ended up getting a degree and starting a basketball brand from my passion. I would never have went to college if it wasn't for the game of basketball, but I ended up, kind of winning the IBM Business Award, taking my hard work from the basketball court and putting it into the classroom. And I wanted to help other kids in similar situations that maybe are driven by the game of basketball, but don't really have the knowledge or the resources to go to college. So I wanted to create this online basketball community connecting athletes to college coaches. And in doing so, we created a logo and a brand. And I had a t-shirt at an event, and somebody asked how much their shirt would be because they really liked the logo. And so that was kind of what cultivated into an apparel brand, and it kind of took off from there in 2010. So we have 14 trademarks we sell worldwide now, and it's just been a blessing, a journey in the basketball world, and being able to, be able to work with NBA players and influencers, and we've just been having a lot of fun with it. We're located here in Orlando, Florida, so really basketball was, my purpose and really identified my life. And I've been able to put that into an apparel line, and it's just been awesome.
So all that sounds great. All of you sound like you are very happy in the profession that you are in. So my question is, what is something you would like to share about the entrepreneur world that we may not know about?
Do we just want to answer in order again and keep going in that order?
Yeah, you can go to answer.
No
Yeah.
worries. Cool. Yeah, that works. No worries. That you don't know about. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to just when it comes to, and I'm sure Mike and Frank can probably attest to this, when it comes to running your own business. So oftentimes it just comes down to the people who don't stop doing it, right? So there's a lot of people who get like 80% of the way, but they don't get 100% of the way. And quite frankly, I joke with people and I said, the only reason this is successful, or we are at where we are, is because this is the only thing I've worked on outside of the other jobs I had to have to pay for the business for the last 6 years of my life, like every single day for the last 6 years of my life. And it really comes down to a lot of that, especially in a place with me where it's more untraditional. Like I was straight out of school. I graduated in 2017. I didn't have a career or like really a ton of connections or really a ton of access to capital at the time. So it might be a little bit different for Mike and Frank, but that's the big thing, is you can make anything happen if you just keep to it, keep your mind at it. I think the big thing for us was just, how do you go from $0 to once you get your first dollar, and then once you get your first dollar, how do you get your second dollar, and then it starts to snowball from there. Obviously the dollars have changed a little bit now, but that was I still have the first $2,000 check. That was the first advertising check that we ever got, and it started there, and now it kind of is snowballed from there. So that would be kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, Adam, that's just spot on, right? As it just never stops. And again, equated to the game of basketball, you're just constantly adjusting, but you're constantly grinding, and you're never stopping in that process. So entrepreneurship is no different. Nothing prepares you for a pandemic and the government coming to tell you that you're going to have to shut your business down. And you have, at that point, I had almost 400 employees, trying to figure out how I'm going to pay those employees, how I'm going to pay the debts and the mortgages that we have on our businesses, et cetera. Nothing can prepare you for that, right? But you got to keep moving, you got to keep playing, you got to keep grinding, and you continue to adjust. And just as Adam said, you make this play, it goes to the next play, and you just keep moving forward. And fortunately, I will tell you today, a year later, we're in better shape than we were going into the pandemic, from a financial standpoint, a staff standpoint, et cetera. And nothing could have prepared us for that. So Kennedy, back to your question is, what is it? It's always the unexpected and always the unknown, but you just got to keep moving and keep grinding through it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, I think it's one of those things where when they're sharing their story and about entrepreneurship, it really like hits home, because it's something that you go through on a daily basis. And when you're responsible for other people's lives, that's something that you take very personal, and you work even harder for that. I say for me, it's one of the things that I learned the most through this process is really the sacrifice. I think that no one understands what sacrifice means until you start a business, and that sacrifice doesn't stop when you start making money. It only continues to grow as you get employees. You're always reinvesting into the business. When you're an entrepreneur, it's who you are, and it's something that you can't take away. I sometimes I wish I wish I just had a corporate job, or you hear about other people that are successful in the corporate world, but it's just not how we're built. And it's exactly what you said with being an athlete, and that's why sales is good for a lot of people that are, have that entrepreneurship mindset, because you're being able to get what you sow into it, and the harder you work, the more rewarded you get. And that's the same life as an entrepreneur. You're never satisfied. But also, I think like the biggest lesson that I would have told myself back is that the short-term sacrifice that you think you have to make is actually a long-term sacrifice that continues to go. And you don't even see the rewards until one day you look up and you're like, wow, we have a real business and we have real employees, and I'm able to take care of my family, and this is such a blessing, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But on a day-to-day basis, you can get lost in it, and it's difficult. I mean, like you said, when you have 400 employees, I couldn't even imagine going through a situation like that. We were very fortunate through the pandemic, and also, like yourself, it only made us stronger. And I think that says a lot about true entrepreneurs, is like when you get knocked down, you get up and you're better and stronger and faster. We as well, like we were reliant on event marketing, things that were getting shut down, but then we were able to focus on our online and be better at that. And now when events are coming back around, we're in a much better position. So we got stronger through the whole thing too. And I know it's been a crazy time for everyone out there, but I think that's the mindset as an entrepreneur, that you have to have that sacrifice and also know that it's only going to build you up and stronger. And really, like what Adam said, like you have no quit. And that's something that like you think about all the time, but it's like nothing that you can ever like imagine at the end of the day. Like you're just a fighter and you just keep going.
Wow, those are all really great answers. And I think we can all agree that this pandemic has definitely changed everything, but I'm really glad to hear that you guys benefited from it and found a way to benefit from that. My question for you is, for students who may not know what their passion is, what advice would you give them?
I mean, I still don't even know if I know what my passion is. And I'm sure Frank and Mike can probably say that too. Yeah, I mean, I think it's you have to really, I guess, find a passion or have the ability to even work in your passion. You have to find like probably an intersection of like what you're probably really good at and what can make money, and like figure out how to make money or make a career out of that first. I don't know if it's always going to be your passion, right? For an example, is like I guess I was passionate about sports, but like journalism and media wasn't something that I was passionate about, right? It was something that I enjoy, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a journalist student, or I want to be in media, or I want to run media. It was just something that I started to make a couple bucks off of, and I'm like, oh, well, I kind of like this now. And I think that this is positive. So yeah, I think you have to keep an open mind. I think there's so many things you can do nowadays, right? So that like, I mean, even just in your palm of your phone, right? There's so many things that you guys can probably do better than most of us can right now, just because you've grown up in an age where you had the internet since you were day one, and we had the internet. Like I didn't have a phone when I was in high school until my until my junior year of high school. Like, it's crazy. Most of the people here probably have had phones since they were 7, 8 years old. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, you have to figure out, your passion is going to come, and you're probably going to learn what your passion is, but you're going to have to find out that passion is, you're going to probably have to figure out something that you're good at and something that can make money. And if you can find that intersection, it's probably something that'll turn into a passion for you. But that's kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Adam, and I'm probably the old guy on this phone call, right, or Zoom calls. I'm 52. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and still haven't really figured that out. I've got a son that's in college, a daughter that's about to go to college, and this is similar advice to them. What do they want to do? What are they passionate about? And I think you're constantly trying to figure that out. But I think the one piece of advice I would give is just be active. Whatever that is, be active in something. And again, whether that's work, whether that's sport, whether that's just being involved in the community, being involved in social groups, etc. For me, probably the thing that I did figure out in my banking career actually was that I had a really good gift in connecting people. And so I was always about gathering people and connecting people. And so I grew up, doing that in all kinds of different ways through sport, et cetera. And now as an adult, I do it as well through sport. I've got guys, we were up at 5:30 this morning riding bikes through the city of Little Rock. A dozen of us in the dark riding bikes, but I was able to connect and build relationships through that. So that's my passion. And, you know, whatever that platform is, whether it's being involved at the clubs, or whether I was a banker, or whatever my job is, my passion was around connecting people. And so, and building those relationships. But, you know, again, I think it's just about being active and trying to be involved wherever you are.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of them, and it's kind of a mix of, you know, finding your passion is really like, you know, volunteering, doing the internships that, you know, that you're doing, because you got to start young and being willing to take those chances. I think you know what your passion is for the most part, but figuring out what industry that you can apply that passion in, and then go and intern, will be willing to volunteer, be willing to build those relationships at the beginning of your career. Because once you start making money, it's like if you're in high school and you decide to drop out because you want to make money and you're going to go to college later on. Once you start making money, you start getting bills. And now you can't really make those decisions that you could make when you didn't have those bills. And it's the same thing in your career. Once you start making money in your career, then you're kind of stuck there for the most part. You can't start being an intern after you have a mortgage, or you're paying rent, or you have a car payment. But, you know, start early at volunteering, do internships, try to network with as many people as you can, because relationships are so important. So with the access to the internet, you could reach out to any company that you think that you might be passionate about in their industry, and see if they have volunteer opportunities, see if they have internships available. But be willing to not necessarily look at the money side of it at the beginning, but kind of learn to build a relationship and the experience in the industry that you find that you're passionate about.
Definitely, man. And also shout out to Mr. Mike Brown. The shirts we have in NHSBA currently, Mike Brown, who's coach, made these shirts. So definitely, man, they do a great job on apparel. So we definitely appreciate it. Also, my LA chapter will be sending you these as well. So we need your sizes. So Mike, next question for you guys is, I guess, what has been the challenge for you guys in building your brands for your companies?
Yeah, so I guess mine's it's probably different, but media is always on, like 24/7, 365. Like everyone's looking at you, not thinking about you, but like, you know, you have a product that you ship every single day. And you know, it's kind of like, it's a constant evolution, right? I always joke, it's like basically it's like starting out as something that's like really, really fat, and you're like working out, and everyone can see you working out and getting better at what you're doing every single day. And so like you get to the point where it's like, oh wow, like this is like a completely different brand because it's evolved over the course of the time, but everyone can see everything that you're doing, every rep. It's like, it's just so weird. It's not like a product that you can build behind the scenes, or even in, like, I spend a lot of times working in restaurants, like you're cooking food behind the scenes and then it comes out to the customer. They're not seeing you cook the food normally, right? Unless you're going to like Chipotle or whatever. And even then you're there scooping things. So yeah, I think it's just a constant evolution. I think for us, it was really just, you know, we went really hard on Twitter and LinkedIn at the beginning, and I think that's been a really positive thing for us. But one of the big things is, from building brand perspective, traditionally is just finding the niche that you're good at and really just focusing on that niche, right? So originally we started out doing just like the business of sports, and that was all we were doing and all we were covering. And at the time when we were doing it, no one was doing that on social. So a lot of learning things, but I think the biggest thing is that, you know, as everyone says, and everyone always remembers, is, you know, it takes like 15 years or so to build a reputation, but it takes 1 second or 1 month or 1 minute to destroy that. And so that's always something to think about, right? Is like anything you post online, anything that, it's just nowadays, like everything's recorded, all these other things, that you can be an amazing person for 15 years or whatever it is. But if you do something wrong or whatever it is, like that 1 second or that one moment can kind of mess things up. So I'd always just make sure that, you know, everyone's going to mess up. We're not perfect. We're humans, and there's going to be there's going to be setbacks, but, you know, making sure that those setbacks aren't really impacting, you know, what you've done and the work that you've put in. So it's definitely difficult for us because it's a media company where people are reading us daily and we're producing content daily. So something that we always have to be cognizant of.
Yeah, Adam. I mean, all that's exactly spot on. I think, the thing I would say around building your brand and constantly improving that is, for us, and I think back again to my sport days and teams that I respect and know, they always have some, and I call it a brand framework. Some people use the term core values, whatever term you want to use for that, but there's some definition that kind of defines the brand, right? And so for us, we have this thing we call the brand framework. We have about 4 or 5 key words or even key questions that we ask ourselves. And what that does, you go back to Adam's, explanation of constantly every day they're sending out media, and something could mess that up. Every day you're able to come back to those core words or those core questions and go, okay, am I doing the things I'm doing through the filter or the lens of these core values? And by having that touchstone, it helps you kind of be consistent with the brand. The other thing I would say about those core values or that brand framework is it's dynamic. It can change year to year, month to month sometimes, but typically every year or so we look at those and just kind of refresh that. Again, I think back to sports teams. Every year you have a goal. Hey, we're going to win the conference. We're going to make it to the playoffs. We're going to win state. We're going to win whatever. But how are you going to do that? You chunk that down and you kind of go through those core values of who you are as a team or who you are as an organization. So I don't know, Deontay, that was kind of a real ambiguous answer to that. But I think building the brand, you got to be able to define those core values that you can at least come back and touch every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, definitely building a brand is fun. It's something where you're able to pour your passion into something and kind of see it grow. I think the biggest challenge that we were facing, even at the beginning, is really understanding being an inventory-based business. And I think a lot of people out there want to create brands and create apparel. I think everybody wants to create apparel, it feels like, in this world. And they don't understand that, the biggest issue generally in ours is inventory and cash flow. So that's the one thing to understand within a business. And at least from my experience, and our biggest challenge is keeping up with product development and product availability, because you build a brand and it's great, but if you don't have the product, the customers don't have things to buy, it's hard to really grow that way. So you have to understand like your investment side of it. If you sell a product, where does that money go to? Does it go to marketing? Does it go to buying more product? And that's something that is really essential in learning. And that's the biggest challenge in our industry specifically. So I think like for, someone that's looking into the apparel or into building a brand such as ours, or in any type of lifestyle brand, cash flow is a big deal. And so what do you do with that cash when you get it? You have to invest into inventory, and then you be able to, take care of everything else after that. So as you grow, having the right product, having enough inventory to sell when you're building that brand is really essential. So I think that's continues to be a challenge for us as we're growing into new markets and new opportunities, is being able to keep up with the demand. And that's a good problem to have.
Yes, I agree with that. So thank you for that great advice. I know that everything doesn't happen like it should, but we all come out great at the end. So I want to know, what did you expect starting your company versus what you know now in 2021? You're on mute.
Sorry. It's tough. What did I expect starting my company? I didn't expect much, honestly. It never was supposed to be a business. So I guess I've wildly exceeded my expectations. I think the big thing that I've come to learn is that it's because it's your business, you're going to always put more into it than anyone else's. And it's very hard to hold those people to the same standards as yourself, or they're just never going to live up to it. It's your business. It's what you've been doing for a long time. So I thought early on that as soon as we hired people, they're going to want to run through walls and work as much as I am and all these different things. And that's just something that 100% that I've learned over the course of the last, kind of the last couple of years, as we got to the point where we got the financing from our investors and started to hire full-time employees. You go in with this idea of everyone's going to work as hard as you, and everyone's going to be bought in. And, you hope that that's going to be the case. But oftentimes for many people, it's just 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6 to pay their bills, and because they have other things that they want to do on the side too, or that's just what they want to do. So I think that's one of the big learning experiences that I've had from, kind of what I expected, and what it is kind of now. So.
Yeah. Again, Adam's spot on, right? I mean, it's what you do. It's 24/7. You never turn it off. You're constantly thinking about it. You feel like your team is doing the same, but for the most part, they may or may not be. But yeah, so, I mean, Kennedy, to really answer that question, I just think that it is, for me, it's work and it's play and it's all the same. It's what I am. It's what I do. It doesn't necessarily define me, but it is something I do enjoy to do. It's just constantly trying to improve in the business. And again, I was the same way when I was banking. So it's not just the health club business or the fitness industry business. It's just you're constantly grinding and trying to make your skills better at whatever it is you're doing, again, through whatever that core purpose is. And for me, it's about connecting and building relationships. So, I think I've figured that out over time. So you just keep being active and keep moving. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a grind, like you said. And I think it's one of those things for me when I first started, and we grew so quickly. I just thought if I would look back then to where I am now, I would have probably thought that I was a lot further ahead, that I would be a lot further ahead than we are. But I think it's one of those things that's misperception because we put the hardest challenges on ourselves. And so from an outside person looking in, they might be like, oh, the brand is great and you're doing great. But for me personally, it's like I always want to be further than we are, and I'm always wondering why we're not there. And I think that's an endless battle with any type of entrepreneur and that drive that we have. I remember a quick story. I was at an event working and they're like, oh, you work for Hoop Culture? And I was like, yeah. I'm like driving to Louisville from Florida and working this event, packing up. And he's like, that's so cool. And he's like, do you know how big Hoop Culture is? And I was like, yeah, I know exactly how big Hoop Culture is. I'm driving to Louisville to work an event. But I mean, it was that was so rewarding to me because I understand that even though I hold myself more accountable and I wish that we were, bigger and better and stronger, that we're just where we're supposed to be at this time. And, we're building something that's supposed to be special. And it takes a lot more time than we think it's going to take. But that's okay. When you look at big brands like Supreme or Diamond Supply Company, you're like, wow, they're got fancy cars and they got big offices and all these buildings. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, but they've been doing it for 30 something years. But we expect that same result overnight because we're so driven. And like Adam said, like you expect everyone around you to have the same results that you do so that you can grow exponentially. But it is a grind and you will get there, but it just might take a lot longer than you think it's going to take.
That saying goes, every overnight success story is 10 years in the making. So it's
exactly
like pretty true. Like we didn't hire our first full-time employee until I did it for 5+ years.
Yeah.
Just on my own. So it's like, and
Thanks.
we didn't do 7 figures in revenue till year 7, right? And that was me doing it. So it's just like those types of things that you gotta always consider and remember.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Those answers are really great. Mike, that story just reminded me that sometimes it's nice to hear some input from an outsider, someone who has nothing to do with inside. It can remind you of some really nice things. We have a question from one of our students, and they're asking about when you all started up. Obviously, there's a startup cost, and there's going to be some no's. How did you get through that?
Yeah, so for me, basically it was kind of wild. It all kind of happened organically for the most part. Like again, we were at a place where we just didn't know where we wanted to do with the business. I graduated in 2017. We had made a couple dollars. I was doing it full time on the side with working 2 jobs, and it was just like, is this something we're going to be able to turn into something? And early realistically in late 2017, early 2018, I connected with someone on Twitter by the name of Jason Stein, and him and I went back and forth. We started talking about a few different things, and then 3 or 4 months later, I tweeted something it was more like, it's amazing what can happen in a year. I think the girl I was with at the time had just broken up with me. I don't know. I was tweeting like emotionally or some reason. I've never done it again, but for some reason I did. And he'd sent it to me in a DM and he said, let me know how I can help. And I said, okay. So I basically got on a call with him and I let him know how he could help, and basically harassed his assistant after that because he ran an agency, like a 600 person agency. I happened to be going to New York, 3 months or so after that, after we first talked. And I basically just harassed his assistant into making sure that I got a meeting with him, found out that he was leaving. And then from there, him and I just started talking, and I said, look, like, I think this could be something. And he said, I agree. And so from mid 2018 to the end of 2018, we just started talking, and they kind of helped walk us through what the fundraising would look like and everything like that. We're our first investor, and still to this day, like, their group is the only investor in FOS. And so, yeah, it was just a chance. And there's the old saying, it's like better to be lucky than good sometimes, but you have to be good to be lucky, right? So, again, it was just the fact that we happened to share something from his company that he was starting on our Twitter feed that did pretty well, that when I initially followed him and he followed me back, I sent that to him, and I didn't ask for anything up front. I just said, hey, would love to find a way to work together. Or if you guys have anything, let us know how we can help you. And then kind of just transpired from there. So he's still putting up with me 2.5 years later, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing some days, but yeah, that's how it all started.
Yeah. So again, Adam, great story. And again, that is the way it starts, right? And again, if you really read between the lines of Adam there, he was just active, right? He was just out there being engaged and putting himself out there and made those connections. And ultimately, it's gotten to where he is today. And, my story is probably not that much different. I did have a corporate job, which again was what I'd done for about 30 years at that point. But my best friend and I started a CrossFit box. And so again, if you're familiar with CrossFit, I mean, this thing was in a grungy old warehouse. We both put up a little bit of cash. We hired a trainer that we really liked because we both had day jobs. And so we set the trainer up in business and started CrossFit. And it didn't take much money, but I mean, it took some money. And so we were able to scrounge that up from ourselves and invest it. And about 18 months into that, one of the guys that was coming to our CrossFit box called me up and asked me how happy I was banking. And I said, well, it's been a nice career. It's afforded me a good life, and I've been able to, provide for my family, et cetera. And he said, well, I have an opportunity to buy these health clubs. Would you like to be a minority partner and the day-to-day partner involved in those? And about 30 seconds later, I said, yes, I think that sounds like a heck of an idea. And so we did have to put up some cash. So we put up a small amount of cash, and then we took out loans to purchase these clubs. And again, these things are big facilities, big buildings, et cetera. So that's how we did it. And we do have a great relationship with the bank, and they're a partner, just like any other partner that you have in the business. And so you've got to really work to build your relationship with the bank, because they're investing in you, they're investing in your dream, they're investing in the process of going through it with you. And I was on the other side of that desk for years as a banker. I was constantly saying yes or no to different business ventures and partnering with different entrepreneurs and whatever their dream was. And so yes, back to the question that came in through the feed is, yeah, loans are a part of it, and you're going to get no's sometimes. And sometimes a no can be the best thing that can happen to you, because you've got to adjust and you got to figure out, okay, well, how can I make this happen? Or you may have to scrap that plan and do something different in the process.
Yeah, and I think that my story maybe will be, beneficial to some young entrepreneurs out there, because I grew up with nothing. Like I said, I wouldn't even attended college if it wasn't for basketball. I was the first person in my family ever to go to college. Ended up getting a degree and getting a good job while I was starting the business. And so I was very fortunate, getting out of the situation that I grew up in. But then when it came to creating a business, I didn't have family that I could go to get money from. I didn't have resources. So I had incorporated the business, and I knew that we needed capital for inventory and to build the brand. And so I basically had my story, I had my concept, and I did what they call a friends and family raise. And so I was selling small equity into the company for an investment. And I was able to get our startup money from that process to be able to get off the ground. And obviously there's different rounds and different ways to go after that. And even in today's day, it's much different than when I started. There's much bigger and better platforms out there to share your idea, to get, to how to raise capital, and different ways to do that. But once you start to establish a business, and especially an e-commerce business, there's a lot of partners out there. It's a different traditional banking nowadays. When you're generating, sales through e-commerce and you're having that revenue coming in, then they will offer you capital. So you can pick and choose what makes the most sense for your business. But for my story in particular, I basically went out there, knocked on doors, asked friends and family to help me get us off the ground, and it turned out to be successful.
Well, thank you guys for those answers. Before I ask the question from our next student, I'm going to let Morgan unmute and ask her question first.
Okay, so hi, I'm Morgan. I'm one of the interns. And my question is what is something that you wish younger you would have known when you started?
Adam's still young.
Yeah, that's tough. I think the best advice that I got from a person who I did an interview with, and I think this was helpful in a lot of these things, is he always said, be a fountain, not a drain. So when it comes to relationships and everything like that, so put forth more energy, like just always kind of put out really good energy, good work out, and eventually things will come back to you. Like if you're always, and I always mention this, like my kind of approach when I first started the business was like, I always ask people like, how can I help, or what can I do, or anything like that. And eventually those people help you, or they'll give you something or whatever it is without even having to ask. So I think that's one of the things that I really have cherished, is just like, again, always looking at like, how am I a fountain and not a drain in this situation? And as long as you continue to be a fountain and do the work that you need to do and everything, like usually it'll come back around for you, right? So that person who I met that day and had that conversation with, I would always just randomly follow up with him when I saw his name in the news, whatever it is, et cetera, et cetera. And he was the person who gave us the tip that arguably gave us the biggest story that we blew wide open, and we had it and everyone sourced us, that ended up with us hiring a reporter that has been on our team for a while and has like, it's just like those types of things. And it was just came from that piece of advice. So that's my thing is be a fountain, not a drain, and continue to stick to that throughout your career.
Yeah. So Morgan, I think, I think for me, I actually heard this advice when I was coming out of college, and it really didn't resonate probably till maybe even 15, 20 years later. But my dad was overhearing a conversation that my best friend and I were having. So I was starting out my banking career. My best friend was in med school. He was a few years from getting out of med school, and we were just having kind of a typical dude conversation of, oh man, when I make X, I will have arrived, right? It was, man, if I can make X, I've arrived. And my dad, who was about my age probably at that time, said, you know what, guys, y'all are crazy. It doesn't matter what you make. Every month, you're still trying to figure out how to make one end meet to the other end. You're constantly going to have struggles of trying to figure out how to make it all work. There is no X. There is no arrival, so to speak. And, I look back at that kind of interaction and that conversation, and I think there was a lot of truth to that. And really kind of the underlying component is it's really not about the money. I mean, yes, money is a necessary thing, and we all want to make money, and we all like to make money because it can provide a lot of stuff, but it's not about the money. It's about the process. It is about, being able to be successful in whatever your craft is. And, the other couple of things I would say to that, you think back to some of these great sports icons. I think back to Michael Jordan, the dance, you hear all of that. He was just so driven to be the best, right? And it was about ultimately winning the championships, but there wasn't anything about money in that was important to him. It was about being the best. You think about Tom Brady, Drew Brees, those are a couple names you see in the news around the football stuff, but it was just about being the best. And so, I think the thing that I would have wished I would have really paid more attention to is it's not about the money. It's not about arriving. It is about just being the best at whatever you do. And so that may be something I wish I would have paid more attention to when I was younger.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because you want to be the best at what you do, but you also, if I was to talk to myself from the beginning, I would say it's about the details. And so you really need to understand about the small details in making the whole business run. If you're a good cook, it doesn't mean that you can open a successful restaurant. So if you're not good at something in particular, then surround yourself with people that are good at that and try to make those decisions quickly, because that's really important to have a well-rounded business for like ultimate long-term success. So I think that you want to be the best at something. And if you're not the best, then hire someone that is the best and, really be able to build your business that way. So I think like if I was to talk to myself back then as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're big thinkers and you think about the big wins and you think about the future goals. But if you don't get the details right at the beginning, then that might be more challenging to reach those big goals. So if you don't focus on the details, then, have someone in your core group that does, or have mentors that help you with those details, whether it's, on the marketing side, or if it's on the financial side, or whatever it is that you might not be the strongest at. Make sure that, like those winners, like Michael Jordan had a good team around him. It doesn't matter like if they're a future star or other stars around him, but he might need a good rebounder. He might need, a good assist person. Like, so you got to find that to create a good core team. I mean, I think that's relevant in our business since we're a basketball brand, but I think that works in anything. It's like, really focus on details and making sure that you're doing everything right at the beginning, because you don't want to go back and try to figure things out after you've already made some progress. So that would be something that I would tell myself is like, yeah, it's great to think big, but don't skip over the details.
Really great advice. Our next question comes from Kendra, and this kind of touches back earlier when we talked about the pandemic and how, Frank, you as well have benefited from COVID. Can you tell us a little bit more about the changes you made and how it has helped your company?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for all of us, especially for Frank, for the most part, there was a time in March when we're just like, shit, I don't know if this is going to be around anymore. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. We had just kind of finished a fundraise and we were in a place where we were actually, no, we didn't. Yeah, we just finished a little bit and it's like, okay, we started the year really hot in 2020 and then the pandemic hit and it was like, holy cow, how are we going to, I mean, our revenue went from, where we were at to basically zero for an entire quarter. And we're just like, this is advertising, right? It's the first thing that gets cut for the most part when it comes to dollars and during the pandemic. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. But, honestly, it gave us an opportunity to refocus. I know Mike already touched on the how they started to focus on their e-commerce side of things, which is something they probably didn't do as much. Like for us, we were trying to be in a bunch of different places and once we figured out that, hey, actually our newsletter and our email business was the best part of our business. It was the one that was growing the fastest. It was the most efficient from a CapEx standpoint and from a people standpoint. We actually just doubled down on that. And that's been a reason for our growth. So, as much as the pandemic was bad, and for the first 5 months, I probably didn't sleep as much as I probably wanted to because I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to survive or anything like that, or however it was working. We had other competitors that were more capitalized that were taking employees from us. Like there was probably a few nights when there was some tears cried. I'm not going to lie, because I was that stressed. And, we got to the point where we started to get through it and it really helped us from a focus standpoint and helped us focus on the core product, what we did better, how we differentiated ourselves, and ended up actually stronger because of it.
Yeah, same, Adam, for us. I mean, the pandemic was, it was awful. It still is awful in a lot of ways, but it did provide a lot of opportunities. And so, it's basically restarting the business, and that's how I challenged our team, and is just because that's how we used to do it. We're starting fresh, and in a lot of ways we just rebooted, and so there's a lot of good that comes out of that. But lots of sleepless nights. Probably have never worked harder in my career than I have the last 12 months, and feel like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel right now, and so a little bit optimistic. But again, you wouldn't have been thinking that the world was going to go through what it just did, back February of last year in some cases. So you just got to constantly be ready to adjust to whatever served up.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was a real tragedy, I think, for a lot of businesses and a lot of families. So during that time, it was a lot of prayer and just, praying that people and businesses kind of got through it. And for me in particular, I slept more than I did before that because I wasn't allowed to go out on the road and travel and be able to, really market our brand. So I was home more, and it allowed me to focus on my employees, allowed me to focus on my business. And really, like Adam said, our core has been our e-commerce. When we first started, we were like grassroots. We'd go around to events everywhere, and we just really never lost that. But as that was a majority part of our business, our e-commerce was just growing so rapidly that became our core business. But I wasn't able to focus on it and really get the customer service and the things that I needed to focus on because I was traveling. So it was an opportunity not only for me to be home with my family, be with my employees, and really focus on our core business to make that stronger. But it was just good to be able to, pivot and build confidence that I didn't need to be out there. So it made me personally stronger, probably a little bit healthier. I did get more sleep during it, because like as an entrepreneur, your mind never stops and you're always want to work, and you might think you need to do something. And then once they tell you can't do it, and you're still standing and you're still surviving, and you're like, wow, it just builds confidence and it allows you to shift gears.
Okay, guys, we're about to run out of time a little bit. So I guess any final thoughts or anything for everybody?
Yeah, so I think the one thing is for me, and obviously you guys have a great group of people here, is as much as you want to get ahead and talk to the people ahead of you, I think it's really important to make sure that you're talking horizontally with all of your friends and what they're doing and staying in touch with them, because eventually there'll probably be someplace where you're going to be in a similar situation, or they're going to want to start a business, or they're going to be successful, right? Like your team is going to be an important part of it. And quite frankly, going forward, honestly, like I loved sports so much, and I wish I still played sports. I'm jealous of you guys. I wish I still played competitive sports, because it really is essentially just like life and business, and you're going to learn so much. But there's so many aspects about running a business or starting a business or working with. Everyone's a team, right? Like you're a team trying to accomplish one goal, and that goal is dependent on whatever it is like that. So, right now you're a team trying to score more points and make sure you're defending against the other team. Whereas like our team is trying to grow more subscribers or whatever. And it's just a team, right? Like everyone has to have their back. Everyone has to be going in the same direction. So yeah, I mean, I think my closing thoughts is really don't forget about the lessons you have in sports and the coaches and the mentors you have, because quite frankly, it's just going to be like that in real life. And I think the more you lean into it now, and the more you feel comfortable working for a team and working on a team and playing on a team, it's really going to pay dividends in long term.
Yeah, so my closing thoughts, Deontay, are one, thank you. What an honor to spend this hour with you guys and Adam and Mike and everybody else on the call. The biggest closing thoughts I have for you is watch out for my Razorbacks in the tournament. So I think they're going to go deep and they're going to make a good run. My number one Razorback baseball team is playing right now, so watch out for them when they go to Omaha. And, you know, again, you know, for me, the things I've learned, it's not about money, so to speak. It's about being the best you can be, being good at your craft. It's about building relationships, and that has just resonated throughout my whole life, and that I feel is my kind of gift. And so just constantly building relationships. I can't believe I'm sitting here on the National High School basketball deal. I mean, who knew Deontay would reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm sitting here on a Zoom call with you guys, right? So just build relationships, constantly be active out there, and go Hogs.
That's so funny. It is March Madness. I think, you know, I really like what Adam said about like just trying to be helping other people during this process. I think if you extend yourself out and see how you can be a help to other people and build those relationships, it's going to go much further than you think it is. I think selflessness is really important in this world, and I think that it will take you a lot further. We are on Instagram at Hoop Culture, and I am the one that handles the direct messages there. So if anybody has any questions in particular, I feel like I've been through this grind, this journey, this struggle, the winning, the losing for a reason. And I'm always open to answering any questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story, my story personally, and be able to, you know, be on a platform with a couple of entrepreneurs that are obviously good people and successful. So I'm honored to even be here today, but I'm accessible beyond today.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And I guess if anybody had any question or anything, can they possibly reach out to you guys if they have any questions?
Yeah, you can share my email with them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming to speak to everybody. And like I said, we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.